Hi, everyone, and welcome to Women of a Particular Age podcast. My name is Tara.
My name is Heather. Welcome.
Hi, Heather. How are you doing, friend?
I'm doing awesome. How are you today, Tara?
I'm good. I'm good. So, first and foremost, before we get started, I just wanted to thank you today for joining me for brunch. And we had a wonderful time. I can't wait to post the pictures. You look so good.
Thank you too.
All righty, so we're gonna get on into it. So, folks, once again, thank you for joining us to the Women of Particular Age podcast, where we talk about women's issues, worldviews, and a little bit of sugar honey iced tea. We do want to thank the music, the intro and the outro is provided by Jolly Studios, which is my husband Michael Jolly. So thank you so much. And we are going to get into today's topic. So, folks, I don't know if you guys are Netflix buffs like me and Heather love to look at Netflix movies, and especially when it has to do with sometimes not because we're infatuated with it, but the conversations sometimes um, get really deep when we talk about essay or maybe unaliving someone. So I thought that maybe one of the good things that we could talk about today is the JonBenet Ramsey case, and that has to do with who killed JonBenet Ramsey. Okay, so now what we're just going to talk about first, I'm just going to set it up, and then I'm going to shoot it to Heather. Some of the major players that were the people who were in the home was John Ramsey, which was the father, Patsy Ramsey, which was the mother, and then you have Bert Ramsey, who was the son, who was 9 years old. Now, the house that they lived in, I would say it was $1 million house, 6,500 square feet, 3 levels. Parents lived at the top level. The parents were staying at the top level. The daughter was in the second level, but they didn't discuss about the son. Now, Heather, why don't you take us to the crime scene? Take us to the crime scene, to the basement, and how that looked, and some of the things that we saw there.
Yeah, so once you get down to the basement area, you're going to notice that there was a broken window that was open. There
Yes,
was some glass on the floor. The window was, as there was some dirt and and some of the fallen glass from the window.
yes,
They what they call a garret. I don't know if I'm
yes,
pronouncing it correctly, garret.
uh
And
huh,
that was it's used as a ligature, like to manually, like you can strangle somebody, but you can apply pressure on and off. So you don't generally
yeah,
have to use it to
yes,
completely strangle someone. You can kind of release pressure, put pressure, release
yes.
pressure. But so it's not just like
Oh,
a straight rope or cord. It's like used as an instrument of,
yes. And they
it's
basically
kind of,
wanted to gauge. They wanted to gauge this whole.
yes,
Oh, oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay,
So
all
it's
right.
almost like not a straight strangulation, but in this method, it's like kind of putting the pressure on the neck and then releasing on and off.
Yes,
So
yes,
that's the intent when someone uses something like that.
yes, yes. All right, all right. Ugh. Now, Heather, you know what? There's something that I forgot, and I know you thought you knew that I forgot this. So, friend, listen, let's do it. We still got to get it in there. Okay. All
Cheers.
right. We
There we
got to get it
go.
in. Sorry, folks. We usually do this in the beginning, but this was really, really a good case. This was a good case. Okay, so Heather,
Yeah.
let's talk about let's talk about when the parents the parents discovered that Jean Benet might be missing. Because I remember there was a note. Now, where was the note left, Heather?
The note was found in the kitchen, and the mom was the
Mm,
first person to find the note. And she said
yes,
she started reading the first couple of lines,
yes,
and it hit her when it talked about kidnapping her daughter. And that's kind of
correct.
like where she lost it. Because the first couple lines, it took her to the third line to realize, oh my gosh, my daughter's been kidnapped. So she,
Yeah.
she screams.
Yes.
Hmm.
Now I can tell you this. What's odd to me about that is, yes, they found the note, but the thing that was curious to me is that the police looked at both of the notepads that were owned by John Ramsey and Patsy Ramsey. Now, it was curious to me that this person used Patsy's notepad to go ahead and do the ransom letter, to be specific about the amount that they wanted, a specific amount, and then they made a mistake, and then they rewrote something again. I don't know, Heather. Heather, what do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
Well, on the notepad that Patsy had written her, she had to do a sample writing for the detectives as well as John Ramsey, and they both took
Yes.
separate pads and did a sample writing. And when those pads were turned in on Patsy's pad, there was kind of like
Hmm.
a grocery list, and then underneath that,
Yes.
there was it looked like the same writing as the ransom note, and it said Mr. and Mrs. and they did one stroke like to make the R, and they stopped there. So
Yes.
they're saying, okay, so this is the pad that they used to write this
Hmm.
ransom note, which was a very lengthy note. It was almost a full 3 pages, which is really a lot.
Right?
And it was written on Patsy's pad. That means that that person was in there long enough to write this long ransom note. And you're
They took their
correct. The
time.
amount that they're asking for was very odd. It was 118,000
Yes.
specifically, which is a very odd amount because you're thinking these people are very wealthy. They could have asked for any amount, $1 million, or
Right?
more, something, but they put specifically
Correct.
118,000. Now, what comes out in the story
Yes.
is that 118,700 somewhat dollars was supposed to be the bonus payout to Mr. Ramsey from his work. So they were
Right.
they were
Right.
right, they were
Right.
thinking along. So this person knew how much his bonus was, but then that's
Yes.
kind of silly too because that's just a bonus. I mean, he owns his own
Did that
business,
have to do with any?
electronic
What did that have to
electronic
do with anything?
business.
Right?
He has millions, and you're asking for this
Yeah.
bonus amount. So that, I mean, and who would
Yeah.
know that amount, right? So it's just very
Right.
weird, and it's such a
Now
low
I have
amount.
now I have a question for you. I have a question for you. Now, something else that was curious to me. Okay, and I have a question for you. The police went in. They stated that they went through the whole house and they checked the house. Then the second time, this other woman police officer tells the father,
Yeah.
"Go look around." Then the father automatically finds JonBenet down in the basement. Heather, what did you feel about that? First, you tell us you looked around, you guys didn't find anything, and then you tell the father to do it, and he finds the child in the basement? Hmm.
Right. So, well, the first thing that just comes off the bat that's very bizarre is I
Yeah,
would think that the police would all go in there and check each and every single room
that's what
themselves,
was odd. Mm-hmm.
and they they would have found John Benet.
Yes.
Okay, they should have secured that whole house and told the
Yes.
family to get out because right now,
Yes.
yes, it's supposedly a kidnapping, but we have to go
Right.
in and check for evidence. And
Right.
then I would have let the family come out and then or tell
Right.
them go outside or go to a friend's house and we'll call you to come back. That
Right.
was very odd. To me, it's very
Yes.
shoddy police work because that's like police work 101. I mean, you
Right.
get
Right.
everybody
And
out of the house,
we're not even
secure
police
it.
officers, we know better. Right?
Well, exactly. Exactly.
I
So
mean,
I
come
just thought it
on.
was weird. Now, here's the other thing. There was one detective that was very adamant, like, oh, well, I let him go in, and I guess they had some family friends over there too. And she thought it was peculiar, like he just went straight to the basement and found his daughter. And
Exactly.
yes, and she's going, well, she thought, unless because it's kind of out of the way, I don't know why he thought to go down there, because in his mind, at least what he has said through the interviews, it would have been the easiest point of entry into the house. At least that's
Right.
what he felt and what he said.
Right.
So maybe that's
Right.
why
Right.
it's the, fatherly instinct thing. Okay, someone's going to break in. Where they're going to break in? Let me go downstairs. And
And you know what,
that's
Heather? And I'm so glad you brought that up, because let's also go back to this point. So folks, when you go see this particular documentary on Netflix, I want you guys to also note what the father states, that a year beforehand he lost his keys, and because he lost his keys, he broke into the house, it in the window that was used to go find Jean, to unalive JonBenet in the basement. Now, please keep this in mind, folks, that the father states he is unsure if he fixed that window. Now, Heather, you tell me, if this is your home and you've broken a window, this is $1 million home, 6,500 square feet, okay,
Mhm.
intertwining staircases. You're going to tell me you don't know if you fixed that window or not? Heather, come on, you tell me.
Well, and he knew this was the easiest point of entry, because that's how he entered
Right,
into the house, and probably thought, I will do the least amount of damage going into the small window of the
right,
basement area, which makes
right,
sense if you know
right,
your house. But
right.
my thing is, with what you're saying, why wasn't that fixed the same day? I would have called somebody, or I would have told my wife, hey, let's make a phone call. Can you make a phone
Right,
call? Who can do it? Let's get someone now here,
right,
because we need to get that fixed. They have a home. It's the easiest port of entry into the house, which
right,
he already knew because he got in and he knew that was the way to
right.
go. But it
Hmm.
was, he forgot.
I just honestly, I thought that was odd as well. Okay. I don't know how you could break into your own home, a window, and leave that window open. I don't know about you, Heather, but if that were
Uh-huh.
me, that window's going to be fixed the same day. And I have children.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
um,
Exactly.
that to
Doesn't
me,
make
that to me
sense.
was peculiar. That to me was peculiar. Okay, so tell me this, Heather, because I know that there's some other things. What were some other things that were peculiar to you?
What were peculiar were, well, first of all, we did talk about the setup of the house, where the
Mm-hmm.
parents were at the very top level by themselves. And then, like you
Yes,
said, John Benet was on the next level. I mean, she's only like 6 years old. And they didn't mention where the brother was sleeping. We can
not
only
at
assume it was,
all.
and
We
not
don't
at
know
all. So
where his bedroom was.
we can't say if he was on the same level as John Benet, because underneath John Benet's room was like the living area and the kitchen. So I don't
Yes,
know. But it's just odd to me when you have young children that in a multi-level home, that I
yes,
would want my children to be on a lower level. You and I discussed that.
yeah,
I don't even like the idea. I have a small house, and when my kids were small, their bedroom
yes,
door was always open. Like,
yes,
so, could
yes,
hear, stuff that, and I'm in a very
yes,
small home, but
yes.
just the protective side of being a mom, I wanted
That's
to
right.
hear if anything was going on. But
Yeah,
that was very odd to me that they just had this private room. I could see if you have your own bedroom, and your children are grown, or at least teenagers, at least,
yes,
and then you're like, okay, I don't worry as much. I mean, except right for sneaking out.
right,
But
right.
yeah, I thought that was peculiar. I'm trying to think if there's
And also,
anything
to
else.
friend, they did state that part of the home was an addition.
Yeah, their bedroom was made, that was a new level. Their bedroom was made into
Mm-hmm.
on the very top level. So they
Mm-hmm.
may have been on the second level, underneath. And then what they did is then they built up to have a more of a master suite. You're right.
Right. I
That's
just
true.
think
They
it's
did
odd.
have them.
I just think that it's odd, friend. I do think that it's odd that we're talking about where the parents slept, where JonBenet slept, and we didn't hear anything about where the son's bedroom was. I
Right.
really do think that that's odd. I think that that would have been important as well. I think there was a lot of things to me that were important. I really wish also too when they were discussing this case, because folks, when you guys see in the documentary where the window is in the basement, if you've never seen anything like this before, if you saw where the window was, the window's kind of underground under a grate,
It's
and the
hidden,
grate
hidden.
actually looks like a water drain. Now, I'm not
Yes.
sure what it looks like if you walk up to it, if you can see the window. Can't tell you that because they didn't show you that far. But just being from the outside looking in, it looks like a water drain. And to me, unless you actually knew that there's a window there, you wouldn't know. So I really wish that they would have investigated that more. Maybe talked about if there were other people in the neighborhood who had homes like this that were built that
That
way.
is similar.
Was there a
Right. Yeah.
gardener? Did they all have a gardener? We never talked about if there was a gardener. Right, Heather?
Right.
Who knows?
Right. And they had a big property. They had a very big. So I know they had gardeners coming in, mowing the lawns, and taking care of
Right.
the
Right.
premises. You're correct. But
Right.
no, there was no mention of that. And you're correct. There was no mention. Maybe in that area, those homes that were made had that, for the basement
Yes.
area. But not mentioned that maybe
That's
somebody
right.
else, other houses have it, and maybe this was common knowledge to a lot of people. But
Yes.
we
Yes.
don't know.
I think
We don't.
I think that there was a couple of ways that they could have went with this. Okay, so Heather, let's switch gears and let's talk about the case. Let's talk about the case in general. So in talking about the case, we don't know who did it. Okay, they're looking at the parents. Okay, but they can't really prove it's the parents, right, Heather? They don't really
Yes,
have any
yes.
meat and potatoes, right,
They're
friend?
they're heavily looking at the parents because they're feeling like this was an inside job. Like
Right,
the dad knew about the broken window in the basement. There was no other
right,
forced entry anywhere else.
right.
Um, and I know the police did feed a lot of information because there was a lot of reporters wanting info. And I think they were trying to um, put information out there about the parents, possible
Yes,
suspects, to try to get them to talk or to confess,
yes,
either one
yes,
of them. Because I thought
yes.
that maybe both didn't do it, but maybe one or the other did, and one knew that the other one did, and that somebody would
Right,
confess or fess up to
right.
it, which they did not. They stood their
At
ground,
all,
and they not at all.
at all,
Exactly.
at all,
Mm-mm.
at all. All right, so
And they
friend,
even tried
listen,
to pin it on the brother too, who was 9 years
and
old.
exactly, but now we're going to talk about that
Hmm.
because I remember when I first heard the case, I automatically thought about the brother, but then also too, I didn't know the particulars of the case like how we know now.
Right.
Now that we know how Jean Benet was tortured, how she was unalived, and how she was essayed, okay, you can't get me to think that it was the brother because of the way that she was tortured and this whole little apparatus that was made. That to me was somebody who was knowledgeable in that. This boy
It
was
was
9 years old.
sophisticated. It was more
Yes,
sophisticated than I could see a 9-year-old child attempting to do to do that.
right,
I mean, yeah, it was someone that knows how to do those types of ligatures, that type of thing, and then they knew enough to break a paintbrush, into three pieces, to have two of them, and then got a rope, to tie it all together. I mean, you have to know
right.
how to do that. I mean, that's not. I don't see a 9-year-old putting that together. And then,
Right.
um, yes, and so
I
I
mean,
didn't
Heather,
see.
even when you look at the pictures, when you look at the pictures of the literature, when you look at it, somebody took their time. They took their time. Okay,
Yeah,
you took your time to not only to break this brush, okay, break this brush into pieces, to use this to not to strangle her, but to what is the word I want to use? I don't even want because I want to be able to use the right verbiage of it. It was a partial strangulation where you're strangling her, but you're giving her breath back. You're kind of
yeah.
to me, it's just torture. It's just torture, and then to
You're
SA
tormenting the
her,
person. You're
yes,
tormenting the
tormenting and
person
torture.
because you're strangling the person, but then you're releasing and letting them release the pressure so you can take a breath. So it is a
Yes,
torture. And then once they catch their breath, then you're doing it again.
and you're doing it
And at the end,
again.
yes, it's terrible. And at the end, they did it so tight that it just, I mean, it was, when they showed the
Yes.
picture of her neck, it was really a
Oh,
bad,
the
horrible
pictures,
scene.
folks, you really got to see. You got to see the movie. Whatever you thought, I don't know how deep you really investigated this movie, but please, when you get a chance and watch this on Netflix, because this movie was really, really good. It's really, really good. Now let's Heather, let's talk a little bit more about the case. Now let's talk about now there were three guys. There were three guys that they thought were suspects. Three guys who had shrines of JonBenet. Now there was the one guy, I don't know, I remember his name is Michael Cobb, something of some Michael Cobb, where he had specific details of the unaliving, but the folks don't know that with JonBenet, because she was SA'd, there were there was semen in her underwear. And
Mhm.
none of these men matched it. Right, Heather? Remember when they talked about that? The three
Yeah,
guys?
so they when it comes to yeah, so the one that I think are you talking about the one that went abroad? You talking
Yes.
about John
Yes.
Macar? His name's John
Thank
Macar.
you. Thank you,
Yes,
John Macar. And I'm calling
yes,
him
John
Michael
Macar.
Cobb.
That's okay. It's
I'm
okay.
thinking about
um, so John Macar ended up connecting with an investigative reporter.
yes,
Um, and he got in contact with him. They started having some phone calls
right,
here and there, random phone calls.
right,
And he ends up confessing, about JonBenet, unaliving her. But
right.
right before he actually did the confession, this investigative reporter, I know his last name is Tracy, he got in
Yes,
contact with the police. Hey, you know what? I got this guy. I don't know if it's real or not, but he's been slowly
right,
communicating with me. Do you think
yes.
you want to do a
For a
wire?
period of time.
So he had to keep this investigative reporter had to kind of keep him, on the line, and then he finally got him to confess. And this guy was saying that he was in love with her and that he's always loved her and that the intention was not to kill her. I'm sorry, unalive her. And and that it went too far. That it went too far, and
And
then
Heather, come on, be specific because there was a lot of things that he knew. Come on, tell. There was a lot of things he
yes,
knew.
he did because he talked about using the garrote on her,
Right,
releasing and putting on, and
right,
taking your breath away and then releasing,
right. Specific
doing all.
details.
Yes, he had a lot of details, and that's why the
A lot.
investigative reporter had reported to the police. So
Right,
this guy is basically telling them, I'm not going to tell you where I'm at. You're not going to
right,
know anything else about me. Blah blah
right,
blah. Okay.
right.
Well, the police begin investigating, and to make a long story short, he is found, located, I believe it was in Thailand, working
Yes.
at an all girl school.
Remember? Oh,
And
Remember?
mind you,
Ugh.
he had a rap sheet. He had a rap sheet. He was a pedophile. He had a rap sheet, and he had gone
Yes,
under the radar because he had gone country to country, you
right,
know, jumping around. And so they did bring
right,
him. They did bring him back, but his DNA did not match.
right. It
So they
didn't
were
match. It
unable to
didn't match,
charge him.
folks. It didn't
And the
match.
other,
But he knew everything.
but he knew so much. That's why, yes. And even
Ugh.
the investigative reporter, he said there was times that he himself would be crying just listening to this man describe murdering, I'm sorry, unaliving the JonBenet. He really
Yes,
was like very upset
yeah,
emotionally. He said that it just really made him very distraught. Now the other two people, I think one got arrested for doing something
yeah,
to a little girl, and
yes,
he was very enthralled in the JonBenet case. So they did investigate him, and there was another
yes,
person too, and yeah, there was several people, but they had alibis. DNA
yeah,
didn't match, and
right,
so no charges were brought. And so
right,
here we are
right.
still after all these years
Well, let's talk about this
waiting.
because I know we're going to be wrapping up soon. Let's talk about this. The one thing we didn't talk about, which is what a lot of people blame the parents for, which is the whole pageantry ordeal
Oh
itself,
yes,
which is
yes.
the way that Jean Bonnet was dressed, the way that she looked, the makeup. We all understood that that's how the pageants were, but it did kind of seem that the parents were naive because they never stopped to think that there were other people at those pageants. I remember they made a comment, oh, there's nothing but parents and grandparents here. But they never stopped to think about the photographers who took the pictures. Remember what they
Yes.
talked about in there?
Yes, because one of the suspects that they interviewed was a photographer, and he did.
Yes.
And how they found out about him was he had sold some pictures of JonBenet to some
Hmm.
magazines, and they found out, oh, he has a picture, so that's why he became under suspicion, and he had
Right,
been to those pageants. So, but
right,
they had ruled him out. Yes, the parents came under fire for quite a bit for that because they just
yeah.
didn't think that it was right to do that. But I mean, the mom was a prior beauty pageant.
Yeah, so to her it was normal.
Yeah, she had been beauty pageant one
Yeah,
pageant. So, and she had been through a lot. She had survived cancer. She said she wasn't sure she was going to get it again. And her
yeah,
little daughter seemed very interested in, what her mom did as a, beauty queen. And
right,
the mom just bonded with her that way. And that became just something they all did together. And like you
right,
said, they were naive. They don't think, they were just thinking, okay, they didn't think
right,
of malice. Someone would want to do something, to their
right,
daughter.
right, right. Well, I'm going to give you my last thoughts. I'm going to tell you that this case was interesting, but it was tragic and it was just saddening. It's saddening that this case has never been solved. It's saddening that the mother passed away without knowing who unalived her child. Um, watching this whole documentary again was very maddening. It was very sad that this baby went through this type of torture and somebody did this to her and we'll never know what happened. What are your last thoughts about this, Heather?
Well, I can tell you, I did look on the internet on the New York Post, and there was something
Yeah,
posted by the Boulder Police Department on December 8th,
yeah,
saying that, about all these documentaries, coming up and stuff, and that it's still an ongoing investigation, that
yes,
they still follow tips, but
right,
whatever they're investigating right now is not going to be made public because they don't want anything, they don't want it
right,
out. They don't want it to
right,
get skewed or create more
right,
harm than good. and so
Right.
they're still investigating it. So yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know if they'll ever. I don't know if they'll ever find the person that did that to the poor little girl. I don't know with the DNA, if they still keep checking the databases, if maybe it'll come up. But we never know if that person
Right.
never came into the database, already passed away.
Right.
We don't know. This
We don't know.
really is very sad, and I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see any closure to that, and I don't know. It's
Right.
just a very sad situation. But I will say that watching the 3 episodes, I think it was very well put together, very well done,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the details. And what we discussed earlier, there was a few things that we were kind of questioning or they didn't bring up
Yes.
in there. But like every documentary or show, sometimes they don't fit everything in, or they leave
Right.
some little things to your mind to doubt. Think,
Yeah. Your
so,
imagination. So, well,
imagination,
folks, I'm going
exactly.
to tell you, when you get a chance, please go see please go see on Netflix Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey. It was really good. It is a 3 episode parter. I would say it's an hour each, and I mean you'll probably have some of the same questions as we do. If you do see this and you happen to see our podcast, please come back and comment. And please make sure you like and share and subscribe. We do want to hear from you guys. So if there's anything specific you'd like for us to discuss, please put it down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We appreciate you going on this ride with us. Once again, my name is Tara, and
My name is Heather.
alrighty, and we appreciate you guys being with us today. Listen, have a good one, and we'll see you next week, okay? Have a good one, folks. Take care.
Thank you for joining.
Bye.